random.
That's how you bounce back, baby. Consistency.
They made a run, we answered. We stepped up to the challenge. Our defense, we were in there. We self-corrected when we needed to. All right, we communicated on the floor, multiple levels of effort. We were connected on both ends of the floor.
Man, I think that everyone saw that we kind of got some flow when Kate was hurt and our offense was clicking. But now we have to have a new offense when she's in there because she just brings that much to the game. And so we have to adjust. And I think all of us just want it now. We know what the potential of this team can be, but we can't think about that. You really have to take day to day and stuff that worked here, we need to carry it over to tomorrow's game. We have a lot of games coming up and I think like 7 days or whatnot. And so it's mentally making sure that we're good. It's physically making sure we're getting recovery, making sure we're taking care of our bodies off the court. But we're trying to figure it out. And I think you guys see it. I think we're all a little frustrated.
Everyone thought the Indiana Fever were done. The locker room was divided. Caitlin Clark was just coming off an injury and rumors were swirling about a complete collapse. Even coach Stephanie White was being questioned. But what happened next shocked the entire league. In one night, the Fever went from a broken team to an unstoppable force, and it all started with a heated confrontation at halftime that no one was supposed to hear. Caitlin Clark didn't just bounce back, she took over. And the team? They rallied around her in a way that changed everything. This wasn't just a win, it was a statement to the league, to the fans, and to every player who thought they could take shots at Clark without consequences. What really happened in that locker room? What did Clark say that changed the game? And how did the Fever turn all the chaos into one of the most dominant second halves we've seen in years? Stick around, because what you're about to hear might change how you see this team forever. Just when it seemed like the Indiana Fever were unraveling before our very eyes, something remarkable happened inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse that flipped the entire narrative on its head. After two back-to-back losses that left fans questioning whether the team had already peaked this season, the Fever found themselves facing not only the Atlanta Dream but also a growing storm of doubt, internal frustration, and mounting pressure from all sides. This was no ordinary game. Caitlin Clark had just returned from a groin injury that sidelined her at a critical moment. There were whispers of locker room tension, reports of heated debates between Clark and head coach Stephanie White, and the lingering fallout from the last encounter with Atlanta, where Brittany Griner's disrespectful remarks toward Clark ignited controversy across the league. It was in this combustible atmosphere that the Fever didn't just show up, they took over. With a final score of 99-82, Indiana not only dismantled the Dream but sent a loud message to the rest of the WNBA. This team isn't done. If anything, they've just begun to show what they're really made of. Before this stunning turnaround, the Fever had been teetering dangerously close to collapse. The defeats to the LA Sparks and the newly formed Golden State Valkyries weren't just disappointing, they were red flags waving in plain sight. These were games the Fever were expected to win, but instead, they looked disorganized and lethargic. Clark's injury left a noticeable void, but it wasn't just her absence that caused problems. Dantas also missed games to represent Brazil's national team, leaving the coaching staff scrambling to fill roles and adjust rotations on the fly. Players who had found a rhythm in previous weeks suddenly found themselves benched, shuffled, or played out of position. Frustration mounted both on and off the court, and it became clear that the team's identity was slipping away. Post-game interviews hinted at dissatisfaction, with players struggling to hide their irritation and confusion. The once promising chemistry started to feel fragile. Fans began asking tough questions about leadership, direction, and whether the Fever were built for the long haul or just a brief flash of brilliance. At the center of this identity crisis was a growing divide in how the team was playing with and without Caitlin Clark. When she was on the floor, Indiana played with speed, energy, and a sense of creativity that reflected her style. But when she was out, the team shifted to a slower, more methodical pace, one that seemed to mirror Coach White's preference for grinding out possessions and controlling tempo. The result? A squad that looked like two entirely different teams depending on Clark's presence. That kind of inconsistency created tension that wasn't just tactical but deeply psychological. How could a team build chemistry when their style of play changed so drastically game to game? Clark's return should have been a spark, but instead, it complicated indicated matters. Her shots weren't falling, her shooting percentage dipped below 30%, and her three-point accuracy plummeted to just over 11%. Teammates weren't sure how to adjust, and the once fluid offense became stagnant and reactive. Something had to give, and fast. Then came the practice reports that turned whispers into alarms. Multiple sources close to the Fever began leaking details about intense arguments during team workouts, particularly between Clark and Coach White. These weren't minor disagreements or passionate debates. They were described as loud, visible confrontations that made it clear there was real friction about how the team should be operating. Clark was reportedly vocal about her dissatisfaction with certain offensive sets and specific player decisions, particularly calling out teammates like Kelsey Mitchell and Natasha Howard for a lack of ball movement. Observers noted that Clark appeared disengaged when some teammates had the ball, even walking back on defense at times. The tension became so apparent that it started to seep into the game itself, with fans noticing body language shifts, icy glances, and hesitant decision-making. It wasn't just a chemistry issue anymore, it was a leadership dilemma. Would White continue to assert her vision, or would she start leaning on Clark's instincts? The breaking point came during halftime of the Atlanta Dream game. The Fever had stumbled through another uneven first half, plagued by the same lack of cohesion and frustration that had marred recent performances. But in the locker room, something changed. According to several team insiders and eyewitnesses, Clark and White had a confrontation that redefined the trajectory of the season. Sources say Clark didn't hold back. She called out what she saw as fundamental flaws in the rotation and demanded changes. Her tone wasn't defiant, it was urgent. She believed in the team's potential but knew they were squandering it. White, to her credit, didn't shut the conversation down. Instead, she listened, and in that moment, something shifted. What could have been a complete breakdown became a turning point. The Fever weren't just talking anymore. They were figuring out how to truly play as one. Fueling this fire was the unfinished business with the Atlanta Dream, particularly surrounding Brittany Griner. Their last meeting had left a bitter taste, not just because of the loss, but because of the personal attacks Clark endured on the court. Griner's alleged comments, calling Clark a trash white girl during gameplay, sparked outrage among fans and analysts, though the league offered no formal response. That silence spoke volumes, and for the Fever, it was deeply personal. The rematch against Atlanta was never just about redemption. It was about respect. The entire roster entered that game with an edge, a determination to protect their teammate and prove that disrespect wouldn't go unanswered. This wasn't just another regular season matchup. It was war, and the Fever played like it. From the moment the second half began, you could feel the shift. Sophie Cunningham led the emotional charge, racking up a double-double with 16 points and 10 rebounds. She fought for every loose ball and made sure every Atlanta player felt her presence. Her intensity set the tone for the rest of the team. Meanwhile, Kelsey Mitchell responded to criticism with a 25-point outburst that silenced doubters and fueled the Fever's offensive explosion. Even Clark, despite her shooting woes, contributed 12 points and dished out 9 assists, showing maturity and selflessness in how she moved the ball. She wasn't chasing highlights, she was orchestrating the game. Aaliyah Boston added 19 points and 8 assists of her own, becoming the quiet engine that powered the team's passing game. The Fever turned into a machine, 27 assists on 35 made baskets, a 77% assist rate that exposed Atlanta's defensive weaknesses and highlighted the Fever's renewed trust in one another. What stood out most wasn't the individual performances, but the synergy. For the first time in weeks, the Fever looked like they were enjoying themselves. Smiles returned to the bench. Players celebrated each other's plays. The joy was infectious. As Sophie Cunningham said after the game, "This is a special group. When we're out there having fun and competing, it's just easy." That sense of unity had been missing during their recent slide, and its return couldn't have come at a better time. The Fever's ability to respond to adversity and turn frustration into fuel showed a level of maturity that championship-caliber teams develop over time. And with the season still wide open, this was exactly the kind of spark they needed. It's important to remember that this was only their second game all season with a fully healthy roster. Think about that. Everything we saw in this dominant performance came without weeks of consistent practice, without a rhythm established across games. And yet, the Fever made it work. That's the scary part for the rest of the league. Because if this is what Indiana can do while still figuring things out, just imagine what they're capable of once the rotation solidifies and the chemistry gets even stronger. Their assist rate was through the roof, their defensive intensity was back, and their belief in each other was palpable. Cunningham Cunningham's words weren't empty. They reflected a team that had weathered the storm and emerged closer because of it. This victory wasn't just another W in the standings. It was a declaration. The Fever proved they could take the hits, literally and figuratively, and still come out swinging. Coach White acknowledged that the team had struggled to put the we above the me, but against Atlanta, they finally figured out what that meant. With more than half the season left, the Fever have an opportunity to build on this moment and create something truly special. If they can stay healthy and continue to trust the process, and more importantly, trust each other, there's no ceiling to what they can achieve. They scored 59 points in the second half alone, their highest scoring half of the season, showing that their offense can reach elite levels when the pieces click. The Fever are no longer just a team with promise. They're a team with purpose. And as they head into the heart of the 2025 season, one thing is clear: you can doubt them if you want, but they're not going anywhere.